Hi, this is Lee. This is my third video in my beginner tutorial series for Inkscape. And today I'm going to be concentrating on the text tool. I'm just going to skip over the Bezier tool for now because I want to do something that you could actually do a project and see some results. So to do that, we'll use the text tool to make some word art. So just to access that, you click on your text tool, and you can't see because for some reason my video capture just uses a generic cursor, but the cursor changes to a little crosshair and an A. Then you just click wherever you want to start typing your text, and now you can type it. I'm going to use 2 lines so I can show you some of the other tools at the top. Okay, so there is our text. We are still have the flashing cursor, so at this point I can click anywhere in here and I could change, like if I wanted that to be loved, I could add that in. I can edit the text at this point. If I click on the selection tool, now you see there's a little box around it, like with all of our objects that we've done. And at this point you can use all of these tools that you can normally use. If I hold down Control and Shift, like with the square, I can size this up and down proportionally, right? And then if I use these on the sides, I can squish it one way or the other. Okay. At this point, I can also change the color of the text by clicking down here, or I could open the Fill and Stroke panel, Control Shift F, and click over here to choose a color. All right. So at this point with the selection tool, I can't actually edit the text, but to edit the text, I go click back on the text tool, and now you see I have my flashing cursor again, and I can edit my text at this point. So now we'll go up with the text tool, just like all of the other tools. When you have that selected, you get a new set of options up here at the top. Each tool has its own specific options, and so these are the ones for text. The first one is your font. So you can click on the down arrow here, and you see my cursor is at the end. You can have your cursor anywhere in here, or you could highlight the text and you would still be able to change the font. Okay. I'm just gonna, and then also you can just start typing in the name of the font. So if I want Times New Roman, I can click on Times. I can start typing it in, and then click on it when it comes up. Now some fonts give you the option to change whether it's bold, normal, italic. Not all fonts do that. Some fonts don't have that option, and in that case you might see some options up here, but they won't work. All right. So the next tool up here is your font size. Okay, and I have mine set to I can't remember what it's called. You can change the measurement that your font size is. You go up to Edit, Preferences, then you would click on this plus beside Tools and go down to Text. And my text unit is in pica, which I like. You could also change it to pixel, point, inch, centimeter. What did I have it as? Pica. Okay, so then what I can do is I can come up here and change my text size. Okay. Now you'll notice if I go back to the selector tool and change my text like so, it will also, if I click back on the text tool, it changes the pica size also. The next one is spacing between lines. So if I click on the up arrow, it's going to spread those lines out, and then the down arrow will squish them together. You can also just type a number in, same as the font size also. You can type a number in. Okay, 100, they're still too far apart. I'm going to try, so 90. Try 70. And you just play around and see what looks good. The next set of tools is going to be your justification. This first one will justify everything on the left. The middle one will be center, and the third one will be right justified. Now, for some reason, this last one would justify both sides. It would like spread a shorter line out, and it doesn't always work. I think in a text box, it'll tend to work. So a text box is if you click on the text tool and then click and drag, now you've made a text box. You might copy and paste some text in there. But for some reason it doesn't seem to work with stuff that's typed in like this. So we'll go back to center justified. Your next one is going to be subscript and superscript. So this might be like if you had a chemical formula or something. My husband is a chemist, so he sometimes has me make shirts that have like funny chemistry jokes and that I don't understand, but I might need to put a chemical formula in, and I might need to superscript something, which makes it smaller and puts it up high, or I might need to subscript it, which makes it smaller and puts it down low. And then to get rid of that, you would just click back on it to undo it. Okay, so our next set of tools are these here, which all have to do with kerning. All right, so the first one is spacing between letters. I might want to spread this out. So if I click on the up arrow, now that's spaced at 7.3. I can click on the down arrow to squish them together. -2. You can also type in a number, so -5, all right, or +5. Default is pretty much going to be 0 for all of these. 0 will be the default that the font designer decided was how that font looked nice. So your next one is going to be space between words, and again default is 0. So I can type in a number to increase the space between the words if I wanted to. It doesn't increase the space between the letters, just the words. And again, you can do a positive or a negative. Okay. Set it back to 0. Your next one's going to be, it's kind of like superscript and subscript, but it doesn't change the size of the word or letter. And in this case, you want to highlight what you want to change, and then you can type in your numbers. A higher number moves it down. A lower number, like -5, will move it up. Then your last one is going to tilt the letters, characters, or words, whatever you have chosen. So I could type in like a 5 here, and you see how it kind of tilted it? I could tilt it a lot. Let's try 50. That looks stupid. Okay. You can also put in negative numbers like -5. You might use this, like you might do every single word differently, tilt it, and it would look kind of like a jumbled, you know, maybe with a typewriter font or something, it would look cool. All right, so let's just say that this looks good like this, and we now want to take this and put this into Design Space. And this is where a lot of people get really frustrated with Inkscape really quickly, because text seems to be a thing that people try, you know, one of the first things they try. And you try to put this in Design Space, and there are some problems. So well, I need to save it first. Okay, so I'm just going to do Control-Shift-S to save, and I'm going to save it as Love You. Okay. Now I will go to Design Space and upload that. Love You. All right, it says the uploaded SVG contain the following items that are not supported. Text elements import anyway. If I was to continue, it would just be a blank file. It wouldn't import everything and anything. And the reason for that is that Inkscape, however it codes the text, is not something that Design Space can read. Okay, it's a special coding for Inkscape, and Design Space can't interpret whatever Inkscape is telling it to do. So what you have to do, and I'll show you here, if I click on this and look down here, it says text. Anytime you click on an object that you have, if you look down here and it says text, it's not going to translate into Design Space. You have to change it to a path. So luckily that's easy. We go to Path, Object to Path. All right, now if I Control-Shift-Save, save that again, I'll show you another problem that sometimes trips people up when they're first starting to learn how to do this. So I'm just going to load that file again. Now we don't get that warning. It's not text anymore. So let's go ahead and continue. And I'll select that and put it into my canvas. Success, it was uploaded. All right, and there it is, and that looks nice. But if you look over here, you will see that each letter is an individual object. All right, at this point it's grouped, and if I go to make it, it just lines all the letters up and to conserve vinyl, right? And we don't want to cut all those out and have to place each one by hand. So one thing you could do is you could select this and weld it in Design Space. With a small saying like this, it's only what, about 50 something letters. It's not going to take too long. But if you had a large piece of text, it would take a long time to upload to Design Space, and it would take a long time to weld it. And it's much quicker and easier just to go ahead and do this process in Inkscape. But I'll just go ahead and show you. If you forget to do that, you can do it in Design Space. So now if I go to make it, you see it's all together the way we want it to cut. Okay, so let me delete that. To do that in Design Space, I would do, I look down here and see that it's a group. Now I want to union this as one object, like I showed you in, I think, the second video. You can union two shapes together and make one new shape. You can also union things that aren't going to be stuck together, and it'll make it one object. But I can't do that while it's grouped. A lot of things in Inkscape won't work. A lot of operations won't work if your object is grouped. So the first thing I need to do is ungroup this. So I go to Object, Ungroup. Okay, now you can see, let me zoom in a little. Each letter is an individual object. And at this point you could also click and drag to select one line, and you could make this line bigger. If you wanted the lines to be the same length but have one be bigger. Okay, so you could do that. And there's some tricks later on I'll show you with pulling out guidelines and turning on snap tools to make things exactly the same size. But for now, that's cool. All right, so everything was ungrouped. You can modify anything you want at this point. You can change, like you could move anything around, really. Okay, and then what we want to do is union everything together. If we are satisfied with this and we don't want to change it anymore, we go to Path, Union. Now if we were to take this and upload it into Design Space, it would all be one object as if we had welded it in Design Space, and it would all cut in the correct order. So now let's say you have unioned something together and you decided, no, I don't want that union, I want to move stuff around. Now, you know, in Design Space, once you have welded something, the only way to get things apart is to slice it, and it's actually a little bit easier in Inkscape. What we would do is we would break this apart, and I'll show you what that does. Path, break apart. All right, so let's look at this for just a second. What that does is it separates all of these shapes, all of the letters, into their component shapes. So the centers are actually objects now. If I was to change those to a different color, you would see that's going to be the hole in those two are going to be the holes in the G. All right. There's an easy way to get this back together is you just select what you want to be an object. Let's say we just want the top line to be an object separate. And then we just go to Path Combine, which is the opposite of break apart. Okay, so now it takes all those little negative spaces out, and then we could do the same thing for this bottom line. Click and drag to select it all, and then do Path Combine. All right. So now let's go ahead and upload this to Design Space, and you'll see those are going to come in as two separate objects. Save. Insert images. Now it always brings stuff from Inkscape in as a group. You don't want to group stuff in Inkscape because it comes into Design Space in a strange way. Sometimes it'll mess up your spacing and your sizing, but Inkscape, it automatically puts anything that you've done in Inkscape in a group, and all you have to do is say ungroup. I don't know why it has everything as a individual. I think I must not have saved it. Let me try that again. Let's see now. Okay, now this came in properly. It's still a group, but I can ungroup, and now my two lines are separate, and I can move those around on the Inkscape screen if I need to. So how you design your file, it just really depends on what you want to do. At this point in Design Space, you could also change the color of one line or the other, and then when you send those to cut, they're going to cut on different colors, different mats. Okay, so I think that I will stop there for this one just as an introduction to text, and then in the next video we'll do some more text art, and I'll show you how to make a shadow layer and a few other things. So if you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks.